I've been working on the PCB design for the mobile logger, and I found myself trying to answer two main questions, which is the first is what air pollutants should be monitored for an outdoor sensor, and what combination would help sort of tell a story of what the air quality is really like in a specific location. And then the second question is what types of sensor modules to use in the design. I'll start with the essential pollutants. Particulate matter, or PM, is kind of the first. Particulate matter refers to the tiny particles usually suspended in the air, so dust, soot, smoke, and aerosols in general. They are usually classified as PM1, PM2.5, PM4, and PM10, with PM10 being the larger coarse particles. The reason particulate matter is so important for an outdoor sensor is kind of obvious when you think about what constitutes the pollutant, which is primarily dust and other free floating solids, and sometimes liquids. These are mostly outdoor characteristics, which is not to say particulate matter pollution cannot be a problem indoors, but on average, particulate matter would always be more concentrated outdoors than it is indoors. And particulate matter gets small enough to deeply penetrate the lungs, causing all kinds of respiratory issues. Particulate matter monitoring in an outdoor sensor is sort of a must. Volatile organic compounds, VOC, like particulate matter, is an all-encompassing pollutant that mostly describes man-made chemicals or the chemicals generated from our interaction with household products, so like paints and other building materials, cleaning products, as well as crafting products like glue. VOC is typically more concentrated indoors, about 10 times more than it is outdoors, according to the EPA. So VOC is more of an outdoor pollutant. So then why am I considering it for my logger? Well, the truth is I really wasn't. It just so happens that the SEN55 sensor that I'm going to be using to build my logger happens to also do VOC. So it's kind of like an additional data point that potentially makes the logger more versatile. Although for a place like Lagos, where we have large digital printing houses, usually set up in open, unregulated areas, as well as chemical plants that don't necessarily control their emissions properly. And Lagos is also filled with small businesses and individuals making household versions of some of these household products with chemicals they don't necessarily understand. So I think monitoring VOC is kind of appropriate, almost essential for a place like Lagos. Then we have the specific pollutants, usually categorized as oxidizing gases. So carbon oxides, which is carbon dioxide, and then carbon monoxide, and then nitrogen oxides as well, which is nitrogen dioxide again, and nitric oxide. We also have sulfur dioxide, and then finally ozone, which is O3. Carbon, nitrogen, and sulfur gases are usually produced from the combustion process, which is sort of an unrestrained practice here in Lagos. From the excessive traffic to power generation, we really like to burn fuel here in Lagos. So yes, most of the pollutants I've just mentioned are essentials for an outdoor air quality sensor. Fortunately, again, the SCN55 sensor, which I'm going to be using to build the logger, also does NOx, so which leaves carbon oxides and sulfur oxides, as well as ground level ozone, which is O3. Now, the engineer in me would love nothing more than to jam all these sensors into one device, but that's not really practical budget-wise, neither is it necessary. Carbon dioxide, for instance, is a greenhouse gas, and it's not really considered an air pollutant because it occurs naturally in air, although at high levels in confined spaces it can be dangerous. Monitoring CO2 has also been used to sort of track how viruses like COVID spread. But most importantly, being by far the most important greenhouse gas, monitoring CO2 in an outdoor sensor is more telling on how much a place contributes to global warming than it is the air quality in that place. So I elected not to include it in my design, mainly because there are other immediately dangerous air pollutants. Carbon monoxide is one of them. Carbon monoxide is basically poison that prevents your cells from properly processing oxygen. It's produced from the incomplete combustion of carbonaceous fuels like wood, petrol, and coal. Three substances that are still widely used across Nigeria, especially with street food sellers. So yes, carbon monoxide is sort of a must for me as well as my design. Sulfur dioxide is the next air pollutant I've considered. Like the other oxides, it's also produced from combustion, but it's usually more perceivable in the sense that it has a distinct choking odor. So you can usually tell when it's in high concentration. That is, if you know what it is. I'm unsure if I want to include sulfur dioxide in my design, mainly because it's produced from the same process that produces nitrogen oxides. So a high level in one would likely indicate a similarly high level in the other. So I guess sulfur dioxide for now is kind of a maybe. But if you have any reasons or information as to why I should include sulfur dioxide in my design, then please do share them with me. The final pollutant I've considered is ground level ozone. Ozone, unlike the other air pollutants I've mentioned, is not expelled into the environment. It's formed from the reaction between nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds, primarily in the presence of sunlight, which is a photochemical reaction. So its concentration in the air is usually proportional to how sunny it is on a given day. Ozone can be seen as smog during the early hours of the day before it's dispersed by wind. So it has a transient nature, but it's still very dangerous for humans, more so if you already have a pre-existing breathing condition like asthma. But to answer the question I've been trying to answer with all of this, yes, ozone is a very important outdoor air pollutant, but it's a maybe for my project, or more accurately, it's a not right now. And my reasoning being ozone is formed from NOx and VOC. And since I'm already monitoring these two air pollutants, I figured ozone can at least be implied. Keep in mind that my decisions are also influenced by cost, as these very specific sensors can get very expensive. So the mobile air quality logger as of right now will monitor particulate matter, volatile organic compounds, nitrogen oxides, and carbon monoxide. And I think that's a good combination for a start.